Kathryn Mannix, With the End in Mind, Dying, Death, and Wisdom in an Age of Denial. With the End in Mind, Dying, Death, and Wisdom in an Age of Denial by Kathryn Mannix unravels the patterns and processes of dying and living through terminal illnesses. The book aims to help patients and their families confront and cope with the experience of terminal illnesses, offering comfort and guidance amid uncertain times. In this summary, we'll explore various exceptions, coping strategies, and the role of cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, in helping terminally ill patients. We'll also delve into the relationships, support systems, and legacies left behind by those living through this final chapter of their lives.
Understanding the general pattern of dying. Knowing the general pattern of how most terminal patients die can be reassuring and provide them and their loved ones with time to prepare. The gradual decline in energy, from year to year, month to month, week to week, and finally day to day, is a sign that the end is near. As the body tries to compensate for this loss of energy, patients need more sleep, and unconsciousness periods become longer until they are unconscious all the time. Eventually, the breathing rate slows, and it gently ceases. The author's professional experience shows that this knowledge is comforting to patients and their loved ones, as it assures them that the dying experience is probably less painful and dramatic than they fear. The stark realities of dying. Death is an inevitable part of life, and despite its grim nature, there seems to be a general pattern we all follow when we approach our final moment. However, in some cases, exceptions to this pattern occur, which can render the dying process a mixed blessing. Through the contrasting experiences of Holly and Alex, the author of this book explains two notable exceptions to the typical pattern of dying. Holly, a terminally ill mother, had a sudden surge of energy before she died, which left her unable to rest or sleep. While it gave her a chance to die peacefully surrounded by family, it also meant that most of her remaining energy was spent before she passed away. In contrast, Alex was in remission before a sudden massive hemorrhage caused by the chemotherapy that was helping him ultimately killed him. Although sudden and unforeseeable deaths may seem cruel, they only account for about 25% of fatalities worldwide, and we tend to lose consciousness before we're aware of what's happening. However, even though death is an inevitable and often painful reality, there is always hope that we will exit this world surrounded by love, dignity, and grace. Overcoming challenges. Eric, a retired school principal, faced the ultimate challenge of a terminal illness, motor neuron disease. He initially planned to commit suicide but later learned to adapt and find ways to be independent, despite being increasingly paralyzed. He even found ways to enjoy life's small pleasures, such as guiding his family members on how to tend to his garden and eating tiny amounts of food. By finding coping strategies, Eric was able to spend a beautiful last Christmas with his family and teaches us that we're often stronger than we think when faced with challenges. Terminal illness. The benefits and drawbacks of denial. Coping with a terminal illness is unique to each individual, and there's no one-size-fits-all solution. Denial is a coping mechanism that can be effective, but it has its drawbacks. In the case of Sally, a young woman with melanoma, her family and medical personnel chose to support her game of pretend to stay focused on positive thoughts and memories. Ultimately, their love and appreciation for her were more important than focusing on the sad truth. Coping with terminal illness. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, is a powerful tool that helps terminally ill patients cope with their illnesses. CBT is all about identifying and changing patterns of thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. Dr. Mannix, a pioneer in end-of-life care, added CBT training to her repertoire in 1993. Through the story of Mark, a 22-year-old man with cystic fibrosis, we see how CBT works. By altering his initial pattern of thought, Mark was able to nip his panic attacks in the bud. CBT can help terminally ill patients beyond symptom management. Louisa's life, forever changed. After being diagnosed with incurable cancer, Louisa falls into a deep depression. But with the help of CBT therapy, she engages in many experiments and develops a newfound sense of purpose. She undergoes hip joint replacement surgery and attends her daughter's wedding before passing away. Breaking the taboo on death. Death is a subject that we are uncomfortable talking about in modern times. It leads to conspiracies of silence, causing severe communication problems and hampering healthcare decisions. One scenario is the older person who wants to discuss their death's practicalities with their children, but his children refuse. This scenario happened to Dr. Mannix's 82-year-old patient, Jerry. Due to the silence, Jerry's children did not know his wishes when deciding whether to leave him on life support. Conspiracies of silence can also prevent people from supporting each other as death approaches. The story of Joe and Nellie portrays a cautionary tale about this. Joe and Nellie had a loving marriage of 50 years. Nellie was dying of ovarian cancer, but they both kept secrets from each other, thinking it was too terrible for the other to bear. As a result, they both suffered in silence, trapped in self-imposed loneliness. Dr. Mannix found a way to get them to confess their mutual secret, enabling them to carry their burden together in Nellie's final days. Dying is a part of living. Dying is not just an end, but a distinct phase of one's life. People use this time to develop new interests, tie up loose ends, and shape their legacy. Dr. Mannix's patients provide poignant examples of how dying can be a part of living that leaves a lasting impact. Death is an inevitable aspect of life, but often people overlook the fact that dying is also a phase of life. For most of us, there are whole weeks, months, or years in which we live through the chapter of our lives called dying. It might be the final chapter, but it's as much a part of our life story as any other. In her book, Dr. Mannix shares how dying can be an opportunity for people to reflect, grow, and leave a lasting legacy. Some people use their time of dying to develop new interests or return to old ones. Retired psychiatrist and hospital cleaner bond over their shared passion for jazz. A deep-sea diver named Pete dedicates his final week to clean out his family's messy garage. These examples show how people use their remaining time to live life on their own terms. Other people use their last days to tie up loose ends. For example, Pete wanted to help his wife and kids as much as he could before he left them. Cleaning the garage was not something they thought he was capable of, but it was his way of showing his love for them. Dying can also be a time for shaping one's legacy. A young girl named Sylvie asked for a simple request to make a rocking chair cushion for her mother. She explains that it's her way of sitting down with her mother, even after she's gone. Sylvie's request exemplifies the power of love that can transcend even life. Dr. Mannix's book will change the way you think about dying. Her patients provide poignant examples of how dying can be a part of living that leaves a lasting impact.
Kathryn Mannix's book demystifies the complexities and fears surrounding dying, offering insights and wisdom to those living through terminal illnesses and their loved ones. The key highlights include understanding the general pattern of terminal illness, the importance of individual coping strategies, and the potential benefits of cognitive behavioral therapy. The book encourages us to confront the taboo surrounding death and understand the lived experiences of patients in their final days, and the legacies they cherish. Ultimately, it serves as a reminder that living through terminal illness is an essential and meaningful part of one's life journey, and should be approached with the same dignity and consideration as any other stage of life.